religious liberty in health care. And I just want to, you know, just everybody, yeah, give them a hand. And I don't have to say much anymore. I'm just going to turn it over to him. And then after he talks for about 15 minutes, we're going to have a little while where people can ask him questions. But it's all yours, Congressman Fortenberry.
Thanks so much, Mike. Thank you for your kind and generous introduction. First of all, let me say to you who were there, I regret that I'm not with you. San Francisco this time of the year sounded most delightful, but I've been spending a little too much time away from my own family, and we just couldn't get out there. But I'm glad we were able to arrange this technology to be able to talk with you vicariously through this medium and exchange some ideas. Mike O'Day is a very good friend, and he's an extraordinary leader. This is a man who has expended himself on behalf of women who are in vulnerable situations, unborn children, and correcting deep flaws in our healthcare system. And so I'd like all of you to personally join me in a thanks to his leadership and his courage. Now, the profile of the room that I have, Mike is not in the picture, but there is a young lady. She looks to be about 29. She's in a brown type of outfit with large black boots, it looks like. I think that's you, ma'am, looking aside. Can you just wave? Yes, there. You're the only person I can actually see very well. So here's what I want you to do. If the talk is going well, I want you to do this. If the talk is going well, I want you to do this. Okay? You're my feet, so get through this. But thank you all so much for participating in the conference. I got to know if my good friend and from Nebraska, Big Basha is there tonight. I know he's part of the program. We miss our former Father Basha, then Monsignor Basha, and now Bishop Basha, but we're very proud of the work he's doing out on that coast out there. So, thank you. And all of you there, I know, are playing a role in one way or another, trying to address the deep woundedness in our culture, particularly as it's manifesting itself in healthcare policy and healthcare markets. What I'd like to do is spend a few minutes with you talking about the Respect for Rights of Conscience Act that is before Congress now, the House of Representatives. Talk about a bit about its evolution and where we currently are. After the new healthcare law passed, it dawned on me and my staff and Mike O'Day and David Wilson and others were in parallel fashion working through the same thought process that we have a gaping hole in our healthcare system now, and that it doesn't fundamentally protect the rights of conscience that were operative in our healthcare system until recently. We had the church amendments in the 70s that basically said no healthcare provider could be forced to participate in the act of abortion. Of course, since then we have all types of new technologies and drugs that have complicated that question further. So recognizing that the new healthcare law may be leveraged by certain ideologies who want to see their perspective forced upon other people, we wanted to quickly draft a bill that would address that hole and say that there is a natural right to the right of conscience and religious liberty that ought to be operative in our healthcare. And that's all that this bill does. It basically upholds what we have lived with for 200 plus years in our country, what we have lived with successfully in our healthcare system until recently, respecting the natural right of conscience and religious liberty so that no American is forced to choose between their deeply held beliefs or obeying the edict of the government. That is wrong, that is un-American, that is a false choice, and it violates the fundamental principle of religious liberty that is a part of who we are as Americans. In fact, we did some research and found out that in the original Bill of Rights, the rights of conscience were listed right next to religious liberty, religious freedom, which of course is now enshrined as religious freedom alone in the First Amendment. CNN called me recently and wanted me to go on their program, and unfortunately I wasn't in Washington, so I did it by Skype, and it was a little choppy. But they asked me a number of questions about the Respect for Rights of Conscience Act, because now this has become a firestorm given what President Obama and Secretary Sebelius are doing with their mandate authority, forcing all Americans to pay for drugs and receive and violate the deeply held beliefs of many of us. But CNN called and said, we want you to discuss this. So I laid out some of my arguments. But I also looked at the camera and I said, this is comparable to the government telling you that on every Wednesday, you had to run a particular story. You would be outraged. You'd say, that violates my First Amendment rights. I have the right to the freedom of the press, the right to freedom of speech. You can't tell me what story to run every Wednesday. The same principle applies here, that in healthcare we're now telling doctors, healthcare providers, insurance, people who pay for insurance, and it's even gone so far as to force religious institutions whose tenets of faith demand that they not do certain things that are harmful to persons. The government is going so far to force them to violate their basic religious liberty and religious freedom. Bishop Fabian Bruskowitz, who is our spiritual leader here in Nebraska, sent out a letter in this regard, read to every parish. And I'm paraphrasing, I wish I had it in front of me, but basically he said, an unjust law is no law at all. We will not obey, we will not submit to the strong arm of government in taking away our religious liberty, even if it risks imprisonment or fines. Now that's leadership. And it's not leadership based upon some exercise of power. It's leadership which is stating a truth, a fundamental truth, that all persons have the right to conscience, and that in this country we respect a natural right to religious freedom. I, frankly, have been fortified by the, how would we say, the collegiality, the unity of the Catholic bishops in this country. I have never seen this happen before. I'm sure many of you what that unity is doing for those of us who have to fight this in the political realm. It is creating movement. It is creating a force that is standing behind us, and it is not only meaningful, but it is also affecting potential outcomes. And that's what we need more of. This is deeply serious. This is going to the heart of what it means to be a country that respects the natural rights of persons as they are enshrined so beautifully and well, and specifically in our Constitution. So we went back and working with Michael Day, David Wilson, others, we wrote the Respect for Rights of Conscience Act. We had about 100 members sponsoring this just a few short months ago. Remember those good old days, Mike, when we were in Washington?
I don't know if you can hear me.
Those were the good old days. But what we did...
I got to respond to that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You know, and Richard Dorflinger's here, by the way, and you know how important the role Richard played in all of this. And I know it goes back, I forget even your question, I'll say it again.
100 members, remember the LCMD's group of 100 who sponsored.
Oh yeah, about the co-sponsors. Oh yeah, absolutely. And thank you.
Mike, you make a good United States thinker. It doesn't add, the question doesn't matter. Just keep talking.
Well, thank you for that. They've heard a lot of that. But anyhow, I still want to answer the question. Say it again. You distracted me.
The 100 senators.
Oh, no, the congressman. No, it's unbelievable how many co-sponsors we have now. But this is why we need the California co-sponsors. Every Republican congressman in California has got to co-sponsor this bill. I mean, we got enough to pass the vote right now. But we've got to get the Congress and leadership back on track to co-sponsor this bill so we can move forward with it. So that was my message. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly right. We had 100 members who responded to the philosophical idea of the bill. Mike did some work on it. I did some work on it. Richard Dorfman, we're going to thank him publicly for his input as well. When we discussed a fellow ago, we were trying to broaden the whole concepts of intertwining the two concepts of both conscience rights and religious liberty, because one flows from the other. But it was all very helpful. But what happened a month or so ago with this HHS mandate that, again, is all Americans to purchase drugs and procedures that violate ethical beliefs, the deeply held beliefs of many people, and its most pernicious effect on faith-based institutions, who ironically are the backstop of compassionate care for the poor and vulnerable in this country, has compelled many, many people to act. And so the bishops acting in unity have given just a great, not only philosophical backstop, but some real force behind our efforts in Congress. It's made a difference. Many people were eager to get on this bill after that, didn't have to be convinced. Now, as Mike says, the next phase is moving it forward. Now, this has to be a multi-pronged effort. There's efforts going on in the judicial branch. Lawsuits are being brought. They're building upon past precedent. Maybe this will get overturned in the courts, maybe not. I personally feel that it is the responsibility of the House of Representatives to move forward. Even if Congress is a bit gun-shy, because the issue in the media has been framed up all around the contraception or birth control, even if there's a bit more political risk to it, the issue of the undermining of religious liberty and the rights of conscience is not going away. So it's very important for leadership in this country, you, as well as political leadership, to continue to move forward and reframe this the right way. Interestingly, we have some statistics, some analytics, that show that if you ask the American people the questions about whether or not they are concerned that this mandate is going to impose unnecessarily on religious liberty, you get about, I'm going off the top of my head, about a 55-45% response as concerned. If you say religious freedom, it's a little bit high. If you say separation of church and state, it's 60 to 30 for suggesting that this is a violation of the principles of separation of church and state. If you ask the question as to whether or not Americans believe that contraception, birth control should be treated like any other drug, in other words, it shouldn't be forced, the government shouldn't force people to give it away for free, or church institutions or other faith-based organizations to, in effect, subsidize it, Americans say, yes, it should be treated like any other drug, about 60 to 40. So that appeals to the concept of individual liberty and a protection of this, of the religious freedom that most people intuitively understand as operative in our culture. It is best to argue from a perspective of the rights of conscience, individual liberty, and religious freedom in order to frame the argument up correctly. It is best to talk about this in terms of government coercion, unnecessary, unfair, and unconstitutional coercion of the government to force people to do things that they may not wish to do. And again, all this bill does is restore where we are in upholding the natural conscience rights and religious liberty that are so precious to Americans. So those are some of the arguments, the way in which we are arguing this. There is a deep intensity, if you will, on our side. We just need to make that known better in the political realm so that we can potentially move forward on this bill and overturn the law. That's where we need your help. All of you have various associations, people that you're engaged with. Please use your authority, your influence, your resources to engage in the political process. If your member of Congress is behind this, give them a hug. Tell them how much you love them. You know, we don't get much love in Congress. guess there's a bit of good news, though. Our approval rating is now in double digits. It's gone up to 11%. But I can almost guarantee you, if you tell your congressman he's doing a great job, he's going to need to hear it. I can almost guarantee it. So tell them that. Not just do it by email if that's the only thing you have, but call them. Talk to their staff if the Congress member won't talk to you directly. And if those of you who know your member, tell them how important this is. And you know, you might want to send them a little resource help. That always helps as well. The second thing is, if your congressman is not behind this, get a group of you, especially women. I think that is very powerful when women go to talk about this, again, because the issue has been framed up as a contraception issue or not. Go with a group of women to see your congressman and say, this is important to us. Women speak for themselves. We want you to uphold our rights of conscience in health care and religious freedom for the institutions who are doing such a beautiful job caring for the poor and vulnerable. Don't make them decide between going to prison and shutting down or caring for the poor. That's simply wrong. That's not American. You can do that in a reasoned, rational way, and maybe that'll have some effect. So what we have to do is restore the political momentum here that we had about a month ago that has slipped because of the way in which this issue has been framed up in the media. And you've got to encourage your member to be courageous about it and get behind it. And be courageous yourself. You know, if you feel compelled, write a sound, thoughtful letter to the editor, to the paper, and get it in the paper. Start defending it publicly. This is what we need to create new options for ourselves. This is what we need to create in terms of reviving the political intensity that we had about a month ago. So we'll continue to do our job. Please stay with us. Please intensify your efforts. Please do what you can. And I think your gathering tonight is such a great, not only tribute to who you are as a people and a reflection of your character, but it's very meaningful to me as well that you're concerned enough with the healthcare culture to come forward, spend a little time, your precious time, and try to think creatively as to how do we restore healthcare to its rightful place in American life, where it is actually healing people and giving people hope, not intruding upon their foundational rights, not being an instrument of the government's intrusion into people's deeply held faith beliefs. So let me stop there and thank you all again for inviting me tonight. I really appreciate the time. It's actually 10:30 in Nebraska, so I had to come back to the office. The person that you saw on the screen initially is Todd Wilchin. Now, he's a government worker, and he's working overtime tonight to help me out. If you want to take a few questions and tell me how much time we have. I'm wide awake now.
No, we have allocated 10 minutes, for questions. So has anybody got any questions they would like to ask Congressman Fortenberry? Father Fessio. You got to hear from Father Fessio.
Oh, no, he's too smart. No, really, before we start, I'm going to tell a story about Father Fessio. I go on EWTN one night. Yeah, I can see the back of your head, Father. Yeah, that's the lady I can see the most. Yes, thank you. She's my producer for tonight. But I have to go on EWTN. Thankfully, I was before Father Fessio, so I didn't look too bad. And when I come off the set, it was on Raymond Arroyo's show, and you know how Raymond Arroyo is. He's rapid fire, he's intelligent, you've got to be on your toes on that show. Well, I walk off the set, and Father Fessio gets in my face and says, "You should talk about subsidiarity." Help me out here, Father. I'm a politician, not a preacher. You talk about subsidiarity.
Your question.
What is your question?
Okay. How's your wife? Because when I first met
she's
her,
the philosopher.
I was walking down
You know, she's a philosopher.
in Rome.
She's a philosopher. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm walking down being known in Rome, I hear this voice, Father Fessio. I turned over and it's your wife. What, Celeste or something like that? Celeste. Okay.
Yes, left.
Anyway, you were Father Schönborn, Cardinal Schönborn's shindig in Rome. But here's my question.
Is that what it's known as in Rome?
What's the temperature, after the 3 days of hearings in the Supreme Court, oral argument? Paul Clement is a genius, but I'm wondering how's the Congress responding to that?
Well, as I guess everybody's anxiously awaiting, it's a little bit unclear as to what the outcome is going to be. Whatever the outcome is, it's going to be 5-4. You know that. Based upon what I'm hearing, some probing questions were suggesting that the justices may be leaning toward saying the mandate for purchasing health insurance is unconstitutional. They may be looking for a way to uphold certain aspects of the law. I went out in front of the Supreme Court, and by the way, the big group of young people, they're called Students for Life, were out in front of the Supreme Court. And they were out there witnessing and doing a great job and showing some emotion, some passion. You usually get folks who don't necessarily hold your beliefs outside the Supreme Court showing through with bullhorns and creative signs what they believe. So that was fun to watch that. So, Father, I'm not going to give you any insights that you don't already know, unfortunately. I just don't know what the outcome is going to be here. If the mandate is ruled unconstitutional, as you know, that is one of the linchpins of the whole thing. And so this whole thing may take care of itself. Or if there's some decision about a partial ruling, maybe we end up with this preventative authority that's still in the law that is being used by Secretary Sebelius to basically underwrite her ideological perspectives by by forcing all of you to subsidize, in effect, abortion, to do some drugs. And so that may be upheld. I just don't know. I'm sorry, that's a pretty sad answer. I wish I had better insights for you, but I kind of read the paper like you do, and only know that. Only to tell you that there was a lot of energy out there, and the country, I think, is anxiously awaiting this. So hopefully we do have the opportunity to restart this whole healthcare reform process. But this is going to be very much entangled in the election, as you all know, so the Congress is not going to be able to get anything done in this regard this year. It's too election politics sensitive. But it was great to see you in Rome. Yes, I remember I saw you first, Father Fessio. I think I had an ice cream cone in my hand, so I asked my wife Celeste to run ahead and grab you. That's why I startled you on that particular side street there. But yeah, it was a wonderful opportunity to be there. Are you still living there by chance?
No, I'm in San Francisco.
Oh, are you back? Okay, well, good. Well, it's good to have you back our way. But thank you for all the good work you do as well, Father Fessio. We're big fans. And you do know a Jesuit is now chaplain of the House of Representatives. Did you know that?
No.
Who? Father Congressman, who's from the Oregon province. Maybe Bishop Bosch should do that.
Father who?
Conroy.
Congressman. Do you know him?
No, I don't know.
Probably good.
So now the Jesuits have even infiltrated the halls of Congress.
Jeff, we want to thank you for your courage.
Hey, Tim.
And we just want you to know that there may only be 11% approval rating for some, but we give you 100%.
Let me just tell you all, if all of you haven't met him, that was Tim Von Dolan. Tim is a former state representative in the state house in Texas. Tim is a pharmacist by training and has a healthcare retirement system that he runs now, set up retirement homes, nursing homes. And Tim had somehow heard about me, or can I forget the connection that was made, and Tim drove all the way up to Dallas one day. I was having an event in Dallas just to see me. That's been about 5 years now. Tim actually hosted me in his home a year ago. Tim and Pat have just become such close friends, and he gives me a little call every now and then to encourage me. Thanks, Tim, for your friendship. I really appreciate it.
Another question. Michael Day is urging us to get California Congressman to co-sponsor the bill. We have a few.
Yeah.
I believe Darrell Issa has not co-sponsored yet. Is that correct?
Todd, you might want to check right there. I called Darrell about 2 weeks ago and asked him to do it. He said he was looking at it. I think he actually did go ahead and get on the bill. So we'll verify that momentarily. I think he's a co-sponsor now, but Darrell went through a pretty rough hearing on this. He got out on front of the issue, and he just got ripped up in terms of the optics of his hearing. So if you do know Darrell, I'd call him and I'd say, Darrell, thanks for doing that hearing. I know it came out a little bit rough for you, but it's an important issue. The tide's going to turn. It's going to be with you again. Hang in there with us. If you know him, please do that for him.
Well, I've already sent an email, but it would be nice to know which ones haven't in California. We don't have very many Republican congressmen here, as you know. It's down to what, 18 to 19? Maybe
Yeah.
But it'd be nice to let us know because we're in California here.
Well, sure. But I'll tell you what, we'll try to get a list to Mike O'Day before the evening's out, actually. We'll email it and give you a whole list of everybody who's on it. We can pull that up pretty quickly. But let me just tell you all something. This bill is not about politics, and it is not about partisanship. It is about principle. And it is a bipartisan bill. Now, it is heavily Republican, but there are also very good Democrat friends on this bill. One of the leaders has been Dan Lipinski, who is from the suburbs of Chicago. Dan is a very close friend of mine. Dan is a very dedicated pro-life member who happens to be in the opposite political party. And it's very important for those of us, some of you who may live in districts represented by others, to actually not be afraid to talk to them about it. And if your member is on this bill, particularly if he's a Democrat, that is a very courageous thing to do. And those members particularly need support as well. But Dan Lipinski's been a real leader. I just want to acknowledge him publicly. Some of you may know him or may have helped him in the past. Yeah, here we have a list now. Todd is just crack staff here. So Ken Calvin's on it. John Campbell is on it. Start to run low. Who else? Elton Gallagher from near there is on it. Let's see, who else? Dan Lundgren, who many of you know is on it, former Attorney General. Kevin McCarthy, who is the whip in the House of Representatives. Tom McClintock is on it. Darrell Issa is on the bill. Duncan Hunter is on the bill. Wally Herger. We're going through this real fast. I hope I don't miss anybody. Let's see. Buck McKeon is on the bill. Gary Miller. That may be all the Republicans in California. Dana Rohrabacher's on it. Ed Loyce. Let's see, one more page. I think that's everybody. So if you didn't hear me, your member called out, let us know. So I think that's everyone there. Yeah. So thank you.
The Democratic Party will not allow anybody to run for either the Assembly, the State Senate, or for Congress unless they support abortion. And a lot of people pretend that isn't so, but it is so. And it'd be amazing if any California congressman would support this because of that condition.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, again, it is a bipartisan bill, and I'm very proud of that fact because this is about principle.
Congressman Fortenberry, I want to thank you so much, for joining us. And, I think we've got a clear message for California. Any of those Republicans that have not co-sponsored this bill, we got to get them to co-sponsor it. So, but thank you so much for taking this time. And I know it's family time that you took. And, God bless you for everything you do. And you will always be my hero. God bless